Never feel bad about failures in your unfinished works because before you know it, you've already learned something from it. Hi, hello, I'm Tiny and I draw, and I want to share my recent experience with storyboarding. I have a lot of stories, and I mean a lot of stories. I'd cycle between them depending on what my hyperfixation would be for the next couple of months. And currently, I'm working on a superhero story with one of my bestest friends who you may know as SilverFishVA. I actually helped with one of his videos for voice acting once, and it was super cool. I was Tiny Chris. Get it? Tiny? Anyway, to put it brief, it's about a superhero who accidentally traveled forward in time to the future and having to adjust the modern world of anti-heroes and twisted meaning of what it means to be a hero in general. He's the one who jump-started this idea, and I am one of the lucky few who got to be a part of it. I also love magical girls. I grew up with the live action series Balala Xiaomoxian when I was just a wee child, and I currently am a fan of Hirogaru Sky Pretty Cure and Meitante Pretty Cure. So, of course, I jumped in with magical warriors that can fight crime and punch bad guys with sparkly clothes. One of them is my loveliest little darling, Hikaru Miura, or his magical form being Soaring Lux. He's our leader magical boy who is the only hero in the city that retains what it means to be a true hero and the biggest fan of the main character Partisan Prime, or Richard Esposito, Sophia's OC. With my ongoing hyperfixation, I decided to tackle on storyboarding a transformation sequence for Hikaru. As some of you may know, a magical transformation sequence is the most iconic part of a Magical Girl series, and I wanted to make one myself. I've already watched 3 Magical Girl anime to be able to have a good grasp on how they could play out, and I went to work. I didn't actually record any of the process as I was just sketching it out on my sketchbook, and it is a personal project that I didn't really think I'd make a video on, but here we are. Here's the finished product. I've completed it in the span of 3 whole days and took my time with it on each page. It's not supposed to be refined nor pretty, but it is supposed to be readable enough to be able to get the idea across. Now, here's the part where I tell you that this isn't my first attempt of making a storyboard in general. This is actually my third. At least I think so. And here's where we get to the point of why I wanted to talk about this. My first ever attempt of one is actually also a magical girl transformation back in October last year, but for a completely different story of my own. It's a magical girl story where your magical form and companion would be based on your inner child and the real you that's waiting to be discovered. Some of you might be reminded of Shugo Chara from the premise, which is funny because I thought of that before I even knew it existed. I've watched the anime, read the manga, it's cool and didn't age too well, we can move on. Here we have an unfinished transformation sequence with my OC Momoka and her companion Michi. And here's where we run into a huge issue. I started it with way too many details for each panel. That's an animatics thing, not a storyboard thing, so I quite literally screwed myself over the second I started drawing it. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be very inefficient as I've realized way too late in the long run. You gotta have the baseline first before getting to the line art and all that jazz. It still holds up nicely, but another issue was also just the lack of time I got to sit and think about the choreography. I only had snippets of motions I wanted to have in a sequence, but they're all disconnected and I wasn't able to connect the stuff in between, so it was left unfinished as the art drive ran out and I lost motivation on it. The second one is a bit tricky and has one of the same issues with the first attempt. It's supposed to be a storyboard of a cover I was working on back in December last year. I've learned that it's important to draw out the big actions first and not focus on the details, but I was still struggling with the choreography of the whole thing. It was also way too ambitious. I wanted a fully animated MV for my cover of the song Teardrop from Milgram, and I did it all by myself! I've only finished sections of it, but it was nowhere finished. It was also scrapped after lost motivation and a change in my persona during the slow production of it. So, from those two projects, I've subconsciously learned a few things, which I didn't even notice until I finished with my current storyboard. I don't have to draw in every single detail per panel. It's not supposed to look good, it's supposed to be readable enough to work with. I gotta think about the choreography a lot more if I ever get stuck with it before putting pen and paper. I also can't just tackle an entire project that's way longer than what I'm used to. I also realized my preference for traditional art, and I did that for Hikaru. I worked way easier in that way, and I could only use my fingers to draw on my iPad anyway, so of course I might dislike it. I know that for a lot of people, the second you lose motivation on a project or hit a wall that you can't proceed with, it can be very difficult to handle it. You may believe that you're not capable of anything after that. However, my dearest friend had told this to me once upon a time. It is not failure, it is an attempt. It will only be a failure if you gave up. The channel created with Coco that sparked my drive for my own videos also made a video about it, which really helped a lot. You can check it out after you're done with this video. I wanted to share more about what it would look like when your previous attempts ended up helping you in the future, whether you're conscious about it or not. So I really hope that you were able to be more okay with making mistakes. It is the best way to learn and the best way to improve, one step at a time. Before we end the video, now we get into the section where we look in our character uploaders and try to read your OCs purely based on their character design. We'll be doing one per video, so if your OC isn't here yet, you gotta wait for it. Let's take a look, shall we? This is a character from 2, or 2 mentioned plus, on Glomble, who uses she or any pronouns. And she has submitted Lemon, who uses she, her pronouns. The first thing I immediately noticed was her anxious expression. With the small eyes, the little frown, and the furrowed eyebrows, she gave the impression that she'd jump at every little noise. I also love her glasses and the very subtle acne on her face, so it's safe to assume that she's a young teenager going through that stage of puberty. The hair is simple, but the rigid swirls reminds me of ghostly particles you'd see in shows or comics, which is a really great way to spice up what used to be a really simple hairstyle. I really like the yellow shirt she has with the nighttime image. It gives off a great focus in my opinion. Very memorable too, especially since it matches with the name Lemon. The longer sleeves underneath was a great contrast with the main top, and to me, it looks like someone that might be preventing from the cold, less of winter type of cold and more night breeze type of cold. The shorts and simple shoes are also a good contrast with more dull colors. This made me think that she'd prioritize in being able to walk and run easily. I also love the representation of natural body hair on the legs. They're really rare on character designs, and I personally am a bit guilty about not adding them as a natural feature of a character, so I appreciate this. In conclusion, I believe I can deduct that she's an anxious investigator of the supernatural, and I really like Lemon. Thank you so much for submitting her. I have been Tiny, and may you have a happy day every day. Bye bye!